Hello and welcome to the Small Business Briefing. I'm Brian Kelly, the CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Marketing and Strategic Communications. And I always like to start off our show by thanking our sponsor, Consumers Credit Union. To visit consumerscu.org to learn more about the work that they do for small businesses. So Brian, the Federal Reserve Board met this week, and as we kept interest rates steady, what did we learn about what we might expect to happen next?
Yeah, so they kept the interest rate steady, which is to say higher, at least higher than what people have been used to since the going back at least to the 1990s. And this is it's an indication that the Federal Reserve is kind of, they've got balanced concerns. There's this tension that exists when they make these decisions on what are they more afraid of? More afraid of inflation or more afraid of a recession? If they're more afraid of a recession, they reduce interest rates. More afraid of inflation, they increase interest rates. And in this case, when they kept them the same, it means that they really don't see a clear direction of which way to go. We know a couple of things from their comments. First is that they're probably not done raising interest rates. I think the last meeting and this meeting have gone out of their way to set the stage or set the expectation, like we're not necessarily done raising interest rates. And this is because while the inflation has come down quite a bit from the previous year, where it was quite high at a 40-year high, it's not at their target level yet. In fact, it's been kind of stalled out or even some upward pressure on inflation. And when there are concerns with inflation, it's kind of what we might consider like bizarro world where good news, things that we would normally consider to be good news, from an inflationary standpoint, they consider to be bad news. So when the GDP numbers came out last month that showed a much stronger overall economic growth, even after inflation, a much stronger economic growth than what was expected. The concern is that will actually put more upward pressure on inflation. So this is it's kind of a conundrum that they're in. So just staying steady for now, but I think setting the stage that there will be at least another interest rate hike or two in our future. And if I were a betting person, I would say probably we are in store for at least one more before they get to a point where they feel like that part of the job is done. In fact, I think that the chair of the Federal Reserve specifically said the job is not done. When they say the job is not done, what it's talking about is tightening monetary policies to ensure that inflation will not be a problem in the future. And the key tool in their toolbox, interest rates. So I think we're probably in store for another one, but not yet.
All right. Well, thanks for the update. We're actually joined today by a special guest, Nicole Sherwood from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. So, Brian, I'm going to turn it back over to you to introduce her and have a little conversation.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Nicole, for joining us. And just a little bit of background here, too. Anybody who knows SBM, you know that we've got a relationship with Blue Cross Blue Shield going back literally decades. And as part of this relationship, there's a lot of things, innovative things, always changing, always new things happening in the insurance world. Well, with Blue Cross in particular, we wanted to feature at least once a month, to feature something that they're doing that our membership with Blue Cross Insurance, or if you don't and you should have Blue Cross Insurance, some of the things that they're doing that enhance the experience for your team, for your employees, and for yourself as a business owner that is covered. So, Nicole, this month we wanted to cover the cancer support program, and I thought maybe you could start out even just what is it, the cancer support program that you have there, but then also kind of zero in on what does it mean for the network or the interplay that the cancer support program has with kind of the regular treatment type protocol and network services that you have there through Blue Cross plans.
Sure. Thanks, Brian. So I'm very excited to announce on January 1st, we are rolling out a brand new program called Cancer Support. This is going to be added to base benefits for all of our fully insured members. Again, very excited to be able to offer this. It provides a way to optimize care for our members all the way from early detection and diagnosis through treatment, survivorship, and then even end of life, if it unfortunately were to come to that. The program does provide our members with an end-to-end comprehensive cancer navigation and support solution. It includes help navigating the emotional challenges and physical symptoms that are caused by a cancer diagnosis and treatment. This is available to our members 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's delivered through a digital app, or for members who don't have a smartphone, it can also be delivered by phone. We've chosen to partner with a company called OncoHealth, and the name of this cancer platform is called Iris. So the name of the app is also called Iris, and this is a high-touch digital telehealth tool, and it provides personalized cancer-focused support. And this is available to members and to their caregivers. So I'll just give you a little bit of a rundown on the features of the app. It includes on-demand virtual oncology nurse visits. They offer multi-channel communication, meaning they can text, they can do video chats, and then they can just do, of course, basic phone calls. Also, they provide access to oncology specialists, including nurses, social workers, pharmacists, psychologists, and dietitians. They also offer coordination between the customer service teams at Blue Cross and the care managers at Blue Cross. Many members who have a cancer diagnosis may also qualify for a care management nurse, and so they'll help with that coordination. They also offer peer mentors in a community forum, and that can help provide empathy and support for our members who are ill. They also offer self-reported symptom monitoring, so members can keep track and then share that information with their physician. Also, decision support, and then personalized educational content and videos, and advanced care planning. And so as this relates to the in-person care, this is supplemental to in-person care. It does not take the place of that in-person provider relationship. Unfortunately, as wonderful as our oncology providers are, they just really don't have the option to offer 24-hour support to patients and caregivers. So we wanted to supplement for those members that need it. And like I said, this offers coaching and support for members who are dealing with this ambiguous cancer diagnosis and treatment. And then as well, OncoHealth's clinicians can communicate with a member's in-person provider, and they do provide summary notes after the encounters. So just to re-clarify, this does not change our members' medical benefits. The cancer care and treatment benefits are still provided through Blue Cross.
Yeah, what an amazing tool. I mean, think about most of us, I mean, almost everybody has in some way, shape, or form been touched by a cancer diagnosis, and it totally turns your life upside down. And when questions come up, it's not, I think about our interactions with healthcare professionals. You can't think of everything in that moment. Like you got a 30-minute window or an hour maybe when you're in connection with a medical professional, and other things come up. But there's also the things that, an oncologist, some of them have great bedside manner and provide some kind of tips or suggestions on social and emotional type support, but that's not really what they're trained for. So this great supplemental care and coverage for members. Could you maybe get it like from a practical standpoint? So let's say if a business owner offers Blue Cross insurance to their employees, and they don't necessarily know what's going on in the lives of all of their employees and who's dealing with this sort of thing. A lot of times they would, maybe they don't. But if they wanted to just guide people to this resource that will be available here shortly, how do they do that? How do you access, how do you get information, review the things that you just talked about, and then connect to it when it goes live?
So if an employer wants to notify their employees directly, we will have an employer toolkit on our Engage page that can be found at bcbsm.com/engage. That toolkit will be available at the end of November, and it has things like flyers and information how a member can connect with IRIS as well. Blue Cross does do a lot of outreach directly to our members. So we have social media campaigns that kind of raise the general awareness. And then for any members who actually have a cancer diagnosis, we will do an individual outreach directly to them, either via email or direct mail, which I like to call snail mail. And then after that, the member will need to download the IRIS app. They can do that at the Apple or Google Play Store, and then they have to register for an account. They can also sign up by calling OncoHealth directly. And then OncoHealth will use the information provided by Blue Cross to verify eligibility. It's really should be a very easy and smooth process for a member to engage.
So Nicole, why don't let's end our discussion here with this question of why. I mean, I think about how people think about insurance companies in a certain way. I mean, no offense, but they don't assume that you know, like. But to take this type of step, right, it's not in place of anything. It's in addition to other things that are already covered. How did this come up? What's the why behind offering this?
Well, you know, we really do put a lot of thought into providing great benefits for our members. We conduct member research. We want to understand how we can better meet our members' needs and support them. I am aware insurance companies don't have the best reputation, you know, but we at Blue Cross, we really do want to provide the best experience we can. So based on feedback from our members and healthcare trends, we really identified cancer support as an unmet need. So using that information as well as medical literature, we identified what critical elements really needed to be included in a cancer support solution. And then, you know, we did an RFP session, and OncoHealth really was identified as the company that was able to provide the most comprehensive end-to-end navigation. And like you said earlier, unfortunately, really many of us have been touched by cancer. It's an extremely emotional time for people. Unfortunately, a good friend of mine was just diagnosed with breast cancer, and you know, I think she doesn't know which end is up. She's had like 10 appointments in the past week or something. And so offering something like this really helps the member or the patient to navigate through that, to get some answers, to help with anxiety, to have some peer support from somebody who's been in their shoes before. And like I said, this is available to caregivers as well. So it's just another way that the employers that work with you can offer support to their families, or excuse me, to their employees and their families. And then lastly, studies do show that compared to non-navigated patients, patients who have access to a cancer navigation program do see improved outcomes and lower costs. And that's a win all around for us here at Blue Cross.
Absolutely. Well, that's why we love working with Blue Cross. I mean, this proactive approach, and there's so many tools out there, and that's really why we want to intentionally make some time regularly to make sure that our people know that these things exist, and they're right there for you, for your employees, for your family members of employees that are covered under these plans. So really appreciate your the approach that you've taken here. Thanks for coming on the briefing today and sharing this with our members.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Yes. Thanks, Nicole and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. We will be providing members with information about this new program and Blue Cross's other initiatives and programs and packages. So, you know, look for that or just visit our website for more information. All right. So, Brian, as we discussed earlier this week, the strikes are over and the workers have been called back. But now the Anderson Economic Group has been estimating the costs of this strike. So what's the number? Where did they land?
Yeah, this is a something we've been obviously following throughout many weeks here, and the Anderson Economic Group week by week has been updating the costs in several different categories of the strikes to the overall U.S. economy. And now with it over, and while there still actually will be costs in the future, but the cost of the strike part of the process, $10.4 billion. That was the 6 week, approximately 6 week strike overall costs, and that's a really big number. It comes into a few different categories. Wages that workers lost while striking, $650 million. Losses to the Detroit 3 manufacturers, $4.3 billion. Lost wages and earnings to supplier companies and workers, $3.3 billion. And losses to dealers, customers, and ancillary auto workers, $2 billion. So a pretty big price tag, although for the workers, of course, will be made up over the course of the life of the contract and the wages and benefits that they receive. The other thing that I thought was telling was that when the deal was announced and as they go forward, and these contracts still have to be ratified by the UAW members, which I think most industry observers expect to happen, and not, this is like on people waiting on the edge of their seat. Is it going to get approved or not? I mean, most people expect they're going to get approved and by wide margins. But Toyota was quick to respond to this. And basically the UAW, when they announced the final agreement, they essentially said, hey, Toyota, Tesla, you guys are next in terms of going to organize there. And Toyota took a pretty aggressive approach. And what I didn't line up exactly in terms of the wages, but it looks like Toyota is pretty much matching the wage rates in these proposals, maybe to try to head off that sort of organizing effort. It's not to say that there are wage bands and starting, but there's probably a bunch of difference in how they pay. But in terms of the top rate, the stuff that you've read in the papers and the news, looks like Toyota's trying to get ahead of organizing efforts and proactively trying to do something at least somewhat similar to what these contracts ratified.
All right, let's get an update on another story we've been covering. So the legislature has been debating the passage of a huge energy policy makeover. There's new mandates and new regulations that are aimed at eliminating carbon emissions. But a nonprofit in Minnesota put a price tag on this proposal. So what could this cost consumers?
Yeah, when it comes to longer term changes in how the electricity portfolio is managed, they're notoriously difficult to estimate. And most of the time when there's estimates, the estimates come in low. In other words, rates increase at rates that are more than what they were advertised when the policies originally went into effect. And our consumers are feeling that. But this, which is the overall cost of energy in a lot of ways, has been a real challenge over the last several years. So, but looking specifically at these proposals here in Michigan, these estimates between now and 2050, they were looking at between now and 2050, the plan goes to 2040 and then just kind of live under it the next 10 years in these estimates that the related, the turbines, solar panels, storage batteries, and related wires, poles, infrastructure. Because remember, when you put in wind turbines, you put in solar panels, you put in a natural gas plant, put in a nuclear energy plant, you got to move that energy from where it's generated to where it's used. And renewable energy is usually, not really sure why this is the case, but renewable energy is usually located in less dense areas that happen to be more windy, apparently. I don't know if they're more sunny, but more windy. And so the transmission lines are part of it. You got to get the energy from where it's made to where it's used in the more densely populated areas. So anyway, $200 billion to go to a 100% renewable standard. And they also estimate about 61 hours of blackouts a year due to the unreliable nature of renewable energy. Now this proposal in particular, it does seek to take the edge off that with leaving some base load, saying that those nuclear plants could remain, that existing gas plants could remain, assuming that the sequestration, the capture of all carbon emissions could be implemented, which is a technology that's developing. It's going to get there. It's not quite there yet. Now, if you were to go to 100% wind and solar with batteries, so take out natural gas entirely, take out nuclear entirely, then the overall cost goes up to 380 from 200, and let's see, an average of about $228 a month per household. That's an increase of that. That's so this idea of getting to 100% renewable, I think they've kind of come to terms. That's just not possible. So what's moving through you look at these numbers, it's kind of like, whoa. But but even what they're proposing today, this estimate says once fully implemented, it'd be about $100 more per household per month. And that's pretty significant. And for our users, they didn't estimate like the average small business, because it's hard, like what's the average small business? Small business is so different from industry to industry. But you could extrapolate based on what you know about your household compared to your business and get a sense for what the proportionate impact could be according to these estimates. Notoriously hard to estimate, granted, but we know it would be expensive, and we know it would be significantly more expensive. The infrastructure costs are great. And moving ahead of the technology, I think, is part of the reason why that reliability question is out there. It could be some sort of technological breakthrough that happens that solves a bunch of the cost and the reliability problems that we see today, but we're just not there yet. And this is actively being debated, like literally today in the legislature.
All right, well, we'll probably have an update on that come Monday, but it's also a good opportunity for me to remind everyone that if you're looking for ways to be more energy efficient and save on your energy costs, SBAM can help you perform an audit and an assessment. So it's free. Just visit sbam.org/energy and we can set something up. So Brian, another issue we've been following is this research and development tax credit, which did pass the House. Our team's been working on this credit to ensure our members and small businesses have access to it. So how'd that turn out?
There were improvements that were made from when it was introduced. I think it was introduced in a way that, frankly, most small businesses would not have benefited from. So like bigger companies would have used this research and development tax credit. So we really wanted to make sure that it was accessible to our members. While they didn't make it exactly how we wanted it, they did make some pretty big improvements as it moved out of the House, heads over to the Senate now. So here's the deal. They have, there's a $100 million fund essentially that's established. This is done as a tax credit, not a grant, but there's a cap on how much credit can be paid out in a particular year. And but the important part is that they took 25% of it, $25 million a year, and that is earmarked for businesses with fewer than 250 employees, and it's industry agnostic. This was another thing that was very, very important to us. We didn't want them to say, yeah, this industry and that industry, but not these industries over here. We'd rather, there's research and development applies across so many different industries that we don't think the government ought to be picking which ones deserve a research and development tax credit and which ones do not. So number one is industry agnostic. Number two, there is an earmark for small businesses as defined by 250 or fewer employees. Here's the downside though, is that let's say that you are a company and you're doing research and development. You know, maybe you're a manufacturing company. You've got a new process, a new product, a new alloy you're testing, something that you're doing, and there's research and development on it, and you want to get this credit. If you do things that qualify you for the credit, then you file your taxes, you claim the credit, but you don't know how much you'll get until they get all the credit requests for the year, and they see how it compares to the fund, and they prorate the amount that you get based on how many they got compared to their fund. So that's the catch. That's the part we really didn't want to see, that part of it, because you won't know how much credit you get before you do the project. So I think this will It won't necessarily increase the number of research and development projects that happen because you don't know ahead of time how much credit you're going to get, but it will support and lower the cost of research and development overall for those who qualify. The way that it works, it creates a base. So you look at the amount of research and development that on average you did over the last 3 years, and you don't get a credit for that. Whatever you spend over and above that amount. So this is essentially for increases. Any increase, you can claim a credit for 15% of research and development expenditures that are above the base of the last 3 years. And you can claim a credit of maximum of $250,000 per year. And it is a refundable tax credit. Refundable means that you, when you claim the credit, even if, let's say it wipes out your entire tax liability and you still have some credit left, then you actually get a check. I mean, the government refunds it even though it exceeded your total tax liability. So I guess that is not exactly how we wanted it, but it is at least now in a form where we know that small businesses can benefit from it, as opposed to something that would really just be granted through like economic developers just to the big companies doing big projects. So now it moves over to the Senate. We're not done working on it yet. We're going to see if we can still get a little more, get this a little more in the type of shape where we'd want it. Ideally, it'd just be an automatic thing. They define what research and development is. You do these things, you claim the credit in your tax return, you get it. Like there's no approval, there's no determination of whether or not there's funding for it. So just like a regular tax credit. Ultimately, that's where we want to get it. We'll keep on working and see if we can get there.
All right. Finally, let's talk about the redistricting lawsuit trial that has started. Any impressions after hearing the opening arguments and testimony?
Yeah, seeing that we're pretty much out of time now, I think I'm gonna I'll put a pin in this so we can talk about it in more depth on Monday. But because it deserves some time, my jaw dropped when I heard some of the testimony on the opening testimony in this. The amount of acknowledgement about the roles that the state's attorneys played in steering the decisions with the commissioners, the way that they felt that there was kind of a heavy hand with that you got to see this the way that we see it, or else you lose, or else you're going to get sued. And then here they are getting sued anyway, when they did it exactly how the lawyers at the state wanted them to do it, which is to say that they believed that they could violate the Voting Rights Act, the Federal Voting Rights Act, because the Michigan Constitution was changed. And the Voting Rights Act, very deeply steeped in the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Lots of constitutional questions here, but seeing the opening testimony, the opening arguments, I was pretty floored about how clear this case appears to be, in that the rights of particularly Black citizens in the city of Detroit were violated by the Citizens Redistricting Commission. So I come away from it thinking this is a real case, and the chances that certain districts might have to be redrawn so that there can be an increase in the number of minority districts, I think is a very, very real possibility. Several quotes, I made note of some quotes I was going to share. Let's talk about that more on Monday, and this is something I think over the next month or so is going to be pretty big news that isn't on a lot of people's radar screens quite yet.
All right, so a little teaser to make sure you tune in next week. But in the meantime, have a great rest of this week, and we'll be back here on Monday at 3.
Yeah, Monday, everybody.